Hey Flosstube, I'm Annie and I am the Proper Stitcher, and welcome to a special edition tutorial that I am putting together for some of my new Christmas releases. These are original cross-stitch designs that I created for Christmas 2023, and I'm excited to share them with you. I have several tutorials that I am releasing, and this is one of probably two, maybe three tutorials that I am going to share with you. What I'm doing today is we are finishing ornaments or stitched pieces onto a wooden board. I've done this tutorial before. I just thought that I would do it again just for these special designs, just so you can see how I finished them. I always say that I am not a professional finisher. That is a full disclaimer. I am always upfront and honest with you all about that, but my philosophy on finishing your cross-stitch pieces is I would rather have a finished project than a perfect project. And so what that means is I do not like to fuss and worry about things being absolutely perfect, because what we find is when we do that, it hinders us from fully finishing our pieces. So then we end up accumulating all these beautiful stitched pieces that we've been working on, and they're sitting in a drawer or in a box, and you never get them fully finished and you never get to enjoy them. So what I'm doing with this collection of my Christmas releases is I am finishing every single piece by my own hands. I am not sending them to a professional finisher, and I am not having anything professionally framed. Everything I am finishing myself. So it's been fun, and it has proven to be time consuming and a challenge. So a few things that, in a good way, a challenge in a good way, just because it has forced me to step out of my comfort zone on a few things, but it's been fun. So a few things to keep in mind is don't feel overwhelmed when you go to finish. Don't give yourself a timeline. Don't rush through it. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time, and don't try to do too many in one day, especially if you're not used to fully finishing items yourself. Give yourself some grace, give yourself some time, and be patient with the process. That is oftentimes I find people do not enjoy finishing because they get overwhelmed, because they put all these expectations on themselves, not just with their time limitations, but with the end result. So it does take time, it takes practice, it takes patience. So give yourself all those things and have fun with it. What I'm doing in this video is I am showing you how to finish on a wooden board. So I have several pieces that will be finished on a wooden board this time around, but I am showing you how to finish a small piece on an ornament board. I got these boards from April Taylor from Homestead Needleworke, and she has an Etsy shop. I will link it below, but she is going to bundle all of these designs and all of these boards and have them ready for you. Her Etsy shop is always stocked, and if she is out of something, it simply is just not on her Etsy shop. So what you see on her Etsy shop, she has available. If it's something you want, just message her and she will get it ready for you. So let me show you what we're finishing today. And these are 3 ornaments that are from a collection called the Gingerbread's Cottage Ornament Collection. So this one we're finishing in the video today. This is the little girl gingerbread. These are companion pieces to my Gingerbread Cottage drum set that I am also releasing. So this one is Noel. Has a little sugar cookie hanging from the garland, and it's on a red board. And this is the little gingerbread boy. and he is on a green board, and he is holding the letters J-O-Y, so he spells joy. They all are finished with the red and white striped bow, and they have the little sugar cookie embellishment that you can get from Hobby Lobby or Michael's. They usually have these with their miniature tree section, so where you have miniature tree ornaments and things like that. I thought they were perfect for these finishes. So these boards are amazing. They're nice, they're smooth, they're easy to work with, a very good size. I give you all of the dimensions in this tutorial. The dimensions of the boards are the finished area are 3 3/4 by 4. So our stitched piece is stitched on 32 count, and its finished size is 3 by 3. So these make the perfect ornament size boards. You can put these on your Christmas tree, or you can put them on a tiered tray in your kitchen. The whole idea of this collection with the gingerbread cottage drum, that you can either finish as a drum or you can finish as a frame piece, but the whole idea that I had behind this collection was that I wanted you to have something that you could decorate your kitchen for your kitchen. I love to decorate my kitchen at Christmas time, and I just love all of these cookies and the gingerbread theme. And so that was my vision for it, and I wanted it to be simple finish, a simple, easy way. And April really came through with these boards, and they're nice, they're smooth, they're bright, vibrant colors, and they're so easy to order. So today's video, I am showing you how to finish this piece. Please remember, I'm not a professional finisher. How I do something may not be how other people do it or how you find a way to do it, but it is what works for me. And I have often found inspiration through other tutorials that you can find on Flosstube. I always like to reference Pfeiffer with the Twisted Stitcher. She has some phenomenal tutorials. I will link her site below if you would like to follow up this video with some of her tutorials. I will also link below my tutorial of the last time I did a finish on a wooden board. So lots of options for you, but this I just really wanted to show you how I finished it, because I am getting these great little pieces ready to photograph so I can get these patterns released. I do want to show you one more piece that I did finish on one of April Taylor's wooden boards. This is an exclusive board that she made just for this pattern, and this is a wooden Christmas tree board. And this is my new release. This is called Winter Sampler. And this was model stitched by my good friend Jenny Alley with the Bougie Stitchers. And I will show this design in my new release video and give you all of those details, but I wanted to share with you this board. This is a great board also by Homestead Needleworke, April Taylor, and it is a green Christmas tree board, but the size of this one is 5.5 by 5.5. So it's the perfect size for a little piece like this that you can stand up and put somewhere in your home. So I love all these boards. I hope you find this tutorial easy to watch, easy to follow. I do go over the list of things that you will need in the next clip. You will have a list of supplies that you will need. So grab your pen and paper and get ready to take some good notes. Let me know if you have any questions after you watch this, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so here are the things I use for finishing on a flat wooden board or mounting. I use all kinds of cutting tools and rulers. So this is a rotating cutting board. I also have a green cutting board, mat board on my sewing table. Some scissors. I have fabric scissors and paper scissors. Rulers. Oh, I also have my rotary cutter and a guillotine cutter for cutting sticky board. But rulers you'll also need, whatever ruler that works for you. A measuring tape just in case you need to measure the size of the boards. These are the wooden boards that I am finishing on today. These are the 2 finishes I've already done. Your sticky board, this is the sticky board I like to use. You can get it at Fat Quarter Shop. I also get it on Amazon. You will need some quilt batting. This is optional. I like to use the quilt batting to give my pieces a little bit more of a puffy look. That is completely up to you. It is optional. And whatever your stitched piece is, I've already pre-cut some of my mat board, but I will show you how that works. Of course, the item you're finishing on, so this is our wooden board we're using. Pen and paper, pencil and paper. Any kind of trim you're expecting to use, go ahead and have that ready. I have all kinds of sewing needles on my sewing in my pin cushion with the thread I'm using for making the ribbon. And then your adhesive. I'm using both the Aleene's tacky glue. This is turbo glue. I like it because it is thinner. It's not as thick as the regular Aleene's glue, so it comes out easier. I'm also going to use a hot glue gun. So what I do is I use this glue, the Aleene's tacky glue, for the fabric and for gluing the back of the stitched piece in the fabric. I use the hot glue gun to add the embellishments on the top. I always have some sort of hand towel nearby because your hands will get dirty. And then an iron and some kind of ironing board. Because this is a small project, I'm just using my small ironing wool mat. So those are all the products that are items, supplies you will need for finishing on a wooden board. Okay, so in this video, we are going to learn how to finish this ornament collection on these wooden boards. So this is a super simple, easy finish. There are a lot of different choices for you to finish on a board like this. So I'm going to show you how I finished exactly like this with the double layer mounting. You do not have to use the second layer to do this. You can eliminate that portion of the ornament and it would look just as adorable. You can even increase your stitch size finishing board to the back board that I have here. So I'm going to give you the dimensions and everything that I use to finish it like this. So I have these two already done. I'm going to set them aside. And here is my stitched piece that we are going to cut and finish on sticky board. I've already picked my backing fabric. I pulled all the fabric that I am using on all of my finishes today from my stash. So these are just some candy canes on a pink fabric. I believe this was a Riley Blake from a few years ago. So, but any fabric would look adorable with these. So I'm going to set that aside. We'll cut that in a minute. So what I'm going to tell you about our wooden board. So this is a wooden board that is from Homestead Needleworke, and I will provide her Etsy shop below. This is a collection of the boards, and she will bundle them together in a red, a green, and a white. And I have already measured the board. So the board measures 3 3/4 wide and 4 inches tall or high. And my stitched piece is 3 by 3. So it's a 50 by 50 stitch count, and that measures on 32 count fabric to be 3 by 3 inches. So if you do this on 28 count or 36 count, you will have a different size. So this board, you can still finish with a 28 count. You just will probably not do the double layering. But double check your math, make sure it's the right size board for you. If it is not, April on Homestead Needleworke has boards that will accommodate whatever stitch count you decide to use. But mine is stitched on 32 count, 2/2, and the finished size is 3 by 3. Then I've already cut my sticky board. So I know that I want my sticky board to be 1/4 inch larger than the actual pieces. I probably shouldn't have used the white board for this because now I'm laying my sticky board on top of the white. But the board, because it measures 3 3/4 by 4, I want this to be a perfect square. I wanted my mat board or sticky board to be a perfect square. So I cut this board to be, and I'll show you how I cut it, but I wanted to go ahead and just tell you the dimensions. So I cut it to be 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. So 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 is the outermost layer of my sticky board. Then my stitched piece, because it's 3 by 3, I cut my board for it to be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. So what that does is it's going to give me 1/4 inch all the way around so that you can see a little bit of that fabric. So that is how I measured my board. So let me show you first. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the fabric that we need, and then I'm going to show you how we are going to cut the sticky board. So let me set all this aside. So you can do a couple of things. You can apply interfacing on the back of this stitched piece if you want to. I chose not to do that because of this straight line here. I did not want to risk it being wonky or wavy, because if you put that sticky board on, interfacing on, it can provide it can go on a little uneven and then give you an uneven line. So I have decided not to do interfacing on these, but if you are making these into a pillow, or if you just wanted to have a little bit more substance, you are more than welcome to use interfacing. I did not. So I'm going to iron my piece. My iron is good and hot. So I'm going to go ahead and iron my piece. Front and back, and just very lightly iron it. And she will be set aside, and I'm going to do the same for my finishing fabric. I'm going to go ahead and iron my finishing fabric, just so I can have that done when I am ready to wrap it on the sticky board. Okay, so those are set aside. And I'll get this out of the way. So what I'm going to do first is pull over my stitched piece, and we're going to cut it. And I like these little turntable mat cutting boards, but if you don't have one, that's okay. It's just faster for me to do that when I'm showing you what I'm doing. Okay. So here's my measured piece. Now, when I go to cut this, I want to keep in mind that I want enough fabric, a margin all the way around, so that I can wrap it around my sticky board. I also like to use quilt batting. So we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll show you how I attach it. This is optional. You do not have to add quilt batting. It's just something I like to do. But I'm going to have the layer of the quilt batting and the stitch piece. I just want to keep that in mind, that I want enough fabric to be able to fold around the side and glue on the back. So I usually leave about 1 inch to 1.25 inch margin all the way around, just so that I can do that. So I have my ruler, and again, I know that this stitch piece is 3 by 3 inches. So I'm going to look on my ruler, and this is what it would look like right here. Here's my stitch piece. This is what it would look like if I left 1 inch. Well, I think I need just a little bit more fabric around the side to fold it over. So I like to let's give us about 1.25 inches. So that is 1.25 inches right there. So what I'm going to do is cut 1.25 inches off of all 3 sides. So there's 1.25 inches here. Turn my board. And now I've cut that side, so now I'm going to cut this side. Let's do 1.25 inches on this side. And then you can do 1.5 inches. I just don't want it to be too bulky on the back, so 1.25 inches should give you enough fabric to work with. So now let's do 1.25 inches on this side. And that's right there. And then one more side. So 1.25 inches at the top. And cut that off. And now we have our piece ready to attach to the sticky board. You can lace this, you can glue this, but I can see that this will fit. This is how it's going to look on the back. So that's going to give me plenty of room to play with. So I'm going to set that aside and go ahead and cut my quilt fabric, just so while I already have my cutting tools out, then I don't have to pull them back out. So we know that our sticky board for the quilt fabric piece is cut 3.5 by 3.5. to fit on the board. So I'm going to do the same measurements. This one you don't have to be as exact because you're just working with the quilt fabric, but I know I need this to be at least 4.5 inches square. If you want a little bit more fabric, you can do 4 3/4 of an inch square. Some people also, you can just lay it here and kind of eyeball it since this is just the fabric, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it to, let's just cut it to 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. So I'm going to pause and we'll be right back. Okay, so I ended up deciding to make the measurements 5 by 5 for the quilt fabric to fit around the 3.5 by 3.5 sticky board. When I started looking at it, I realized it just was not going to be enough at 4 3/4. So I did a 5 by 5. So that's going to give us just enough of a backing to wrap around the sticky board. So now that we have our fabric cut and we have our sticky board, now it's time to cut the sticky board. So I am going to show you how I use my guillotine cutter. So this is the sticky board that I use. You can get this on Amazon. You can get this at Fat Quarter Shop. It is an acid-free sticky board. You also have the option that you can lace the back of a mat board. I just don't do that. I feel comfortable enough using the sticky board that is what I always choose to use. This is a guillotine swing line brand. You can get these at any craft store. You can get it on Amazon. My blade's a little dull, but it will cut the board for us. So I know that, like I said, that I want to cut 2 pieces of sticky board, and I want one piece to be 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 and the other to be 3.5 by 3.5. So I'm going to show you how to do the 3.5 by 3.5, and then that's the only one I'll cut since we already have the other 2 cut. So I line it up to the 3.5 mark and I give it a good cut. Then I turn it again to 3.5, and then I have my sticky board cut and ready to go. Super quick and easy. I don't have to fool with a sharp knife or worry about cutting. It's going to give me a nice smooth edge. So that is how I cut the sticky board. So I'm going to set that aside, and we have our sticky board here. We have one for the backing fabric and we have one for the stitched piece. Now again, this part is optional, but I like to put quilt batting on my sticky board, and what it does is it gives your little sandwich pieces just a little bit of a cushion. I like the way it looks when it's finished. I like the way it just helps it stand up and makes it look a little puffy. Some people prefer not to do that. It is completely optional and it is up to you. But what I do is I just peel the backing off of the sticky board. You can be precise and measure and cut and all of that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to lay the sticky board on here, use my fabric scissors, and cut all the way around it and get these extra edges off so that it is still the right size. So there's that for our stitched piece. We're going to do that one more time for the quilt fabric backing. Sometimes when you cut the sticky board, it's kind of hard to get to that piece to peel off. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to place the sticky board onto the quilt batting. And this, it can be warm and natural. It can be whatever quilt batting you prefer. I get my quilt batting in squares from Fat Quarter Shop. I will link that below as well. Okay, so that is all I do. That's not going to make it a square, so I'm going to trim that off just a little bit because we don't want the quilt batting to overlap the sticky board or else it'll mess up our dimensions. So now we have our quilt batting on our sticky board. So now what we're going to do is attach our fabric to the sticky board. You do not have to use glue. If you want to use a lacing method, you are welcome to do that. I use a gluing method. It does not scare me. It does not bother me. I think that the Eileen's glue does a great job. What I like about it is I can smooth it out and play with it and it not burn my finger if I had used hot glue. Hot glue, I used to use that to glue my pieces to the back of these boards, but it was just too hot to work with, and it sometimes warps your sticky board and your mat board. So I like the Aleene's glue. So what I do is I'm going to position this onto the stitch piece, and because this already has a border and I know where it is, I'm going to line up with that border and lay it down so until I get it where I want. And so what I do is I place it where I think it's going to go, and then I flip it over and look at it to see if that is where I want it to be. And I think it needs to come down just a little bit because that peppermint border at the top was not all the way in the front, and it still is not quite there. So let me, now you can give I like to have my stitch piece pretty close to the edge for these ornaments. You can give yourself a little bit more allowance if you want. It is completely up to you, personal preference, if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a border. I like that right there. So now that I have it where I want it, I'm going to glue the corners first. So I put a little bit of glue. A little bit of this glue goes a long way. So I'm going to do a little dot of glue in all 4 corners. And then I'm going to pull that corner and just blend it or smooth that glue out and kind of hold it in place. Sometimes you have to put a little bit more glue, and maybe I didn't do enough. And this glue, because it's that turbo glue, it comes out a lot faster. It's just a lot easier to work with. So, and I kind of smooth it out just so I don't have a big glob of glue on the back. So I've got my 4 corners done. And then I'm going to just flip it over, make sure I like it, make sure everything's straight. And I do, I still like it. And then I have my little washcloth nearby so I can wipe my fingers off. Another thing I like about the Aleene's glue is that it dries clear, and it is great for working with fabric. So now what we're going to do is work opposite sides. I'm going to do a thin line of glue across the top, and we're going to fold it down. So what I do first is I work from the corner and I blend in that corner because I want that corner nice and pointy and smooth. So then I start just smoothing out that glue, and then I come over to this other corner and really make sure it's laying nice and flat. And then I pull it back, make sure I like where it is. I have had to pull these apart and redo them, and it's another reason I like this glue, because if I had made a mistake with the hot glue, it's done. Once it's not as forgiving as this glue. So now I'm going to pull that down to the corner, and we're working opposite sides first. That's how you keep it straight. That's how you keep the front portion of this straight. So there is our positioning. Now my border down here is a little wonky, so I'm going to try to fix that a little bit. And I'm just going to give it a little pull on both sides to line it up a little better. I love having a border, but sometimes it makes it hard to get that straight. So that's pretty straight. So now we're going to do the opposite sides. So here we go, and this is where we want these corners to meet and be smooth. It's okay if they're not, but ideally that's my goal. So I've come to this corner and I really give it a good pinch. I really want it to be a nice pointy corner. I don't want it to be just wonky or uneven. And then I just give it another pinch, and then I work that glue with my finger and I really mold it and pull it. And now I'm going to do this side. Same thing. And pull it down. Now this one I can see it's not going to want to meet, so I'm going to have to work with it a little bit. I'll do the same here. And just again, smoothing it with my finger. and see how it did. So there we go. So this piece is now attached to the sticky board. The glue's still a little wet, but it's okay. So I'm going to set this aside, let it dry a second while I work on the quilt fabric and on the sticky board. I'm going to pause and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I have glued the back of the quilt fabric onto the sticky board. It's still a little wet, but that's okay. And I have glued the stitch piece backing to the sticky board. They fit nice, they're perfect, and I am very pleased with how they've turned out. So at this stage, you have some choices. If you wanted, you can, this is when you would apply rickrack, if that is something that you are applying. I'm not doing rickrack to these, but it is an option. So say you did not want to do the double backing, you can use that time to maybe make a little rickrack trim and have a rickrack finish behind it if you choose not to do the fabric backing. You just have so many options that you can do here. You can also do a pom-pom trim or a chenille trim, but this one I just wanted to keep it simple and not have any kind of trim or embellishment in between the two pieces. So now what we're going to do is make our sandwich. We're going to attach these two together and then we're going to put it onto the board. So all I do is I take the back of my stitched piece and then I take the Eileen's glue and I just be very, you can be a little generous with it. You don't have to worry about it. So I have a nice amount of glue, and now this is a square, so I don't have to worry about which way it's going. And I'm going to put it right in the center and give it a little press. Kind of press those two together, let them kind of glue together. So I'm going to put those two together, hold it for a second, and then I'm going to do the same onto the board. And then this is when you look at your board and you decide which do you want to be the front and which do you want to be the back. So I like this side of it better than this side because it's not as sanded. For these, I just wanted it to be a smooth finish. So I'm now going to glue the whole piece onto the board and do it the same way that you did the stitched piece. And that's probably a little bit more than I need, but that's okay. And then now I'm going to put it onto the board. I want it to be a little bit more towards the bottom because I'm going to put a bow at the top and give it a good little press. So what I'm going to do at this point is put a book on top of it and let it dry while we make the bow. So I'm going to set this aside and we're going to make a bow embellishment to go on top. So making a bow is super easy. I already have my needle and thread ready to go. I have a nice sharp thread. And what I'm going to do is show you how to make just a simple bow like this, that are like I have made on here. So all I'm going to do, I have too much here, so I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. Okay, so there are a lot of different ways of making bows. This bow is not going to have a tail on it. I call it a tail, the little swag at the bottom. These are just simple bows. So this is when you decide how wide you want that bow to be. And this looks like about the same size. So you just figure out the width of your board. And for this one, it looks like I need this to be cut at about 11 inches. And I'm just going to fold this one side to the middle, kind of, not quite to the middle. And then I'm going to fold the back side over. And then what we're going to do, I think I did it a little too far. And it takes a little time playing with it. So I want it to be about this wide. And we have to keep in mind that we're scrunching it down and that's going to shrink the size a little bit. So what I've done is I folded this over to be about, it's a 4-inch wide bow, which is the same width as our board. So then you take your sharp needle and it's already I already have it threaded with a piece of red thread. So I am going to make just a couple of X's to hold all of these layers together. So I'm going through the front, starting from the back, and then I'm going up to the front and pulling it down. And I'm making a couple of X's, and all I'm doing is making sure all of those layers of ribbon are staying together. So I'm doing this about 2 or 3 times because I really want to make sure that they're not going anywhere. So do that a couple of times. And now that I feel like I have a good, they're nice and snug, they're together, they're not going to unravel or untie. And then I'm going to have the thread come to the back of my bow, pull the thread down, and now I'm going to make the center part of the bow. And I don't have to worry about this part being pretty because I'm covering it up with an embellishment. So I pull it down and I'm just going to wrap it around the bow a couple of times. Now I've got my thread. So pull it down and then wrap it around. I'm going to wrap it around. Oh, it just depends. I like to make sure it's not going anywhere. So I'm going to wrap it, and what it's doing, and it's not really centered, but I can fix that when I put my embellishment in the middle. I'm going to wrap it probably about 5 or 6 times. Then I take my remaining string and I'm going to knot it off in the back. Okay, so we're going to come to the back, and I'm just going to do kind of like a lasso knot in the back, and do that a couple of times, just so I know that this is all cleaned up and ready to go. Okay, and then we're going to cut that off and take a look at it. Kind of see if it's the way I want it to look. And you can use either side, front and back. I think I'm going to use this as the front. And I don't have to worry about how that's not looking really pretty because I'm covering it with one of our little cookie finishes. I got these, I believe, at Michael's, maybe Hobby Lobby, I can't remember. They're in the little miniature tree section. Like if you have a little miniature tree, they're a little miniature tree ornament. And I thought they were perfect because they look like little gingerbread cookies. You can use a covered button if you would rather do a covered button with your same fabric finish. You can use a covered button there. That would be cute too. A little peppermint, little wreath, anything, or just leave it as a regular bow. So let's check on our stitched piece, and it is nice and dry, or it's attached to our board. So what we're going to do now is attach our bow and our little cookie to the board. So this is where the hot glue gun comes in. Do I want to do this one? I think I might want to do the red on this one and not the green, because these two, I have a different cookie. This one is the same as that one. So let's do a different cookie. So I'm going to do this one. Okay, so let's get our hot glue. I always have a piece of cardboard or a pie plate, you know, like one of the metal pie plates with my hot glue because it drips and I don't want it all over my table. So what we're going to do now, let me get my thread out of the way, is we are first going to attach the bow to the board. So the bow is going to sit sort of in the center and in the middle between your stitched piece and the hole. The hole we can use, you can put a piece of twine through if you want this to actually be a ornament that you hang on a tree. You can add a piece of string or twine if you want to do that. That's what the hole is there. That's the purpose of the hole. So let's put a piece of some glue right here in the middle. It's not going to take much because this is not a big bow. It's not a heavy bow. And then we're just going to hold that in place for just a second. And then now we're going to add our cookie. So I'm just going to put the glue directly on the back of that cookie. try to get rid of that string. And then place it here in the middle. And there we go. We have our bow, and this is a wired rim edged bow. So I like those bows or those ribbons because then you can kind of really make a full bow. So there we have it. There's our little gingerbread girl finish on a wooden board. So let's pause, we'll come back, I'll show you all 3 of these ornaments and we'll just kind of give a recap. So I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. I hope that you found a way to make finishing fun and easy and take that fear of finishing out of the equation. And I hope that you enjoy these 3 ornaments that are just amazing. If you don't want to finish them as on a wooden board, you can finish them as little pillows, and you can put them in a dough bowl, or you can put them on your Christmas tree as an ornament. So I hope you have some options of how you're going to decorate for Christmas, and I hope these tutorials will come in handy for you. Have a great day.